Hello, welcome back to Talkin' Giants, presented by the Fanatics Sportsbook. It is Tuesday, April 7th, 2026, and oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about just when we thought that this whole episode was going to be, well, Shaun, who should we target at pick 37? Who were the best fits? And we were going to make an entire episode surrounding on that. Turns out Dexter Lawrence is requesting a trade. The Giants are signing Lucas Patrick, an interior offensive lineman who played for the Bengals, the Saints, the Bears, the Packers over the last couple of years. And then we'll do a Fanatics Fivo segment at the end talking about the best fits for pick 37. So, Shaun, we got a lot to do. How are you doing, my friend? How was your Easter?
Easter was good. Everything was good. Ate like an absolute pig. Ate like a savage. But that was good, though. No, everything was great, right? Got together with family. Did the holy prayer, and the kids searched for Easter eggs. That was good. That was it for you.
Do you like my shirt?
Famous Netflix actor. I love it, and you are. It is true. You are a famous Netflix actor. Ran into, we actually discussed you. I was with Jake last week at a Yankee game, and we brought up the idea of you being on Netflix, and we still cannot get over that moment happened.
So, let's get right into it, man, where you were live on the air on WFAN, Evan and Tiki.
Yeah.
And the news breaks that Dexter Lawrence is going to request a trade. I somewhat put it in quotes, Shaun, because I don't think this is going to end in Dexter Lawrence getting traded. And I certainly also really hope that this does not end in Dexter Lawrence being traded. But I do kind of want to retrace the steps on how we got here. But the news breaks, you're on the air. How are you guys kind of talking about it and breaking it down?
Okay, so ironically enough, because we're going to have a Fanatics Fivo coming up, this broke the moment I was doing Cinco de Luncho on WFAN. And when that happens, it is like the 4 minutes all show where I don't have Twitter directly in my face. So I had our esteemed digital producer came in, swung the door open and said, Dexter Lawrence requested a trade. I immediately went to that. And I think I had this moment of, oh, finally. And not finally from terms of, like, I want Dexter Lawrence out or I wanted this to happen, but finally in terms of, I feel like we've waited all offseason for the Dexter Lawrence news. We thought by the end of the year, and Justin, I saw you had put out the tweet on January 5th about the idea that we were trending towards a Dexter Lawrence trade request probably. We had enough speculation at the end of the year, especially that he was unhappy with the contract. Then John Harbaugh got hired. I know I'm kind of skipping over some of the steps that you wanted to retrace. He doesn't show up to John Harbaugh's presser. We basically hear nothing. Joe Shane meets the media in a scrum at the combine. They again speak glowingly about Dexter Lawrence. And I don't know if we kind of just were accepting the fact that, I guess nothing's going to happen with Dexter Lawrence, but we probably were stupid in hindsight. He has no guaranteed money left on his deal. So he was either going to request a trade or get a contract extension. And I think my finally was just, finally we have some kind of news on what Dexter Lawrence is thinking, feeling, and how the Giants now need to navigate these waters.
Yeah, my finally feeling, very similar to you, isn't that, I'm so glad that Dexter Lawrence requested a trade. But that last sentence that you said, finally getting some sort of conclusion on how he feels and where he's at mentally, because that was one of my big questions heading into this offseason, not counting the coach and not counting the future of Joe Shane and making the roster better. But that was like one of the big questions that I had because, dude, you don't go from having 9 sacks in 7 games like Dex had, and then he plays for a couple more games, 5 more games, and then he gets hurt in 2024, right? He had 9 sacks in 7 games, and there were legitimate defensive player of the year conversations in 2024. You don't go from that to half a sack in 17 games just because of an elbow injury, and then, you were somewhat out of shape. Like, okay, if he cut that let's just say he had 9 sacks in 7 games, and then that turned into 4 or 5 sacks in 17 games, and it's because of the elbow injury, and it's because of him being out of shape. I would get that, and I would implore that more versus half a sack in 17 games following a season where he was so dominant and so lights out. Something had to be going on, and we talked about it all year, Shaun. If you've been listening to the show, if you've been listening to us, we have been talking about it nonstop. And, maybe some people were calling us conspiracy theorists or, wanting something to be there that isn't. But I think it's clear now that there is something other than just conditioning and elbow injury. He had to be checked out at certain points during the 2025 season and taking plays off and probably had to do something with the contract and not being paid what he feels like he's deserved.
Yeah, totally. And also, I want to just put two things in different spaces. I don't blame Dexter Lawrence for feeling that way. He sat through a lot of misery and a lot of losing with this organization and coaching changes. So, there's a human element where I totally get that with Dexter Lawrence. But I'm so glad you just kind of refreshed everybody's memory on that. And this is not to pat ourselves on the back as a show. It's not to take laps.
I'm patting myself on the back.
Okay, so you pat yourself. I guess we will too. But when the news breaks this afternoon, I'm sorry, I'm saying this afternoon. You know the deal. On Monday afternoon, depending on when you're listening to this, I think I was a little taken aback by some of, let's just call it giant Twitter outrage going, what do you mean? I thought his elbow was just bothering him last year. And I'm sitting there going, am I going crazy? Or did we not talk about this numerous times that he was clearly unhappy with his contract? And sure, I'm sure the rehab and not coming along is quicker and the Giants kind of treating it like a country club. But I think that went hand in hand. I'm a little shocked that many Giant fans didn't realize he was that pissed off. Also, your telltale sign last year, Justin, and this is not meant to be a joke, but it's also serious. When Carl Banks openly ripped Dexter Lawrence as hard as he ripped him during the season, I know we said it. I know I said it on WFAN. This is not a knock on Carl, but just the truth. When Carl goes that hard at somebody who's within the Giant organization, there's, let's just call it a fake green light he's gotten that something is not right with the player.
You should look at the context around, usually when the in-house state media goes after the Giant, like when Bob Papa, Carl Banks, if they openly go after somebody, other instincts and other flags should be popping up, being like, what is going on here? Why did they feel like, why did they get the green light to really do that?
Exactly, which means people within the Giants that led to Carl Banks thought that Dexter Lawrence wasn't doing everything he could to be the football player he was previously. Point blank, end of story. And Dexter Lawrence is outside the top 10 at positional ranking in terms of contracts. And look, that's just the nature of the game. Right. You sign a contract. Other guys keep signing. Other guys keep signing. The cap goes up. I get it. It's business. And now he's out of guaranteed money the way the structures go. He wants to be paid like one of the top 5 defensive tackles in football. I don't blame him for that, but it's going to sour a lot of Giant fans when he's doing this off of the year he just had as well. So I understand the angst everywhere that's existing, Justin. But at the very least, now we have resolution, and now we can talk about this. And I know we're going to talk about this from a couple angles. And I think you just hit on this other part. Just because he requests a trade today doesn't mean he's getting traded and he doesn't actually want to be a Giant. That's the outside of deleting everybody on Instagram, that's the new way of making sure that you're showing you're serious about how badly you want a contract. On the contrary, you do have a new head coach in here that wants guys that want to be here and that want to love football. Will this be a turnoff to him? And does he think he's smarter than everybody else? And he could up coach Darius Alexander, and they could go take a D tackle in the first round and go that route. So I don't know where this goes from here, and we'll kind of discuss our predictions. But I do understand all avenues of how we've gotten here.
Yeah, I think between what Joe Schoen has said and especially what Harbaugh has said, there's been no indication that they're unhappy with Dex. I mean, Joe Schoen's pretty even keel. We expect Dexter to be on the roster, was the most significant thing that he said. But Joe Schoen has kind of done a pretty good job over the last couple years since his first year as general manager of I think, keeping things close to the vest, if you will. But they need to figure out how to make this work if Dexter Lawrence wants to make it work. And that's the biggest, that if is the biggest, I'm trying to think of the word. I really want to emphasize this if when I say this, Shaun. I do not want Dexter Lawrence here no matter what. I really want him here. I think he is a generational player. Very few nose tackles in NFL history have done what he's done. When you get players that are double team 50 to 60% of the time, and they're still able to be really, really effective and still one of the league's best players, you don't just let those guys go. I think he is that special of a football player, right? But I say that with if. I want Dexter Lawrence here mentally. I want him here. I want him bought in. I want him locked in. If we are going to get the Dexter Lawrence, I'm still going to say that Dexter Lawrence was good last year. He was good because he is still double teamed 50 to 60% of the time because he still impacts the run defense. If you look at the on-off splits, let's look at the on-off splits for the last 3 years. Warren Sharp tweeted this out, And then I was able to tweet out a couple weeks ago the on-off splits for 2025. When Dexter Lawrence is off the field over the last 3 years, they're last in total yards per attempt, 7.7 yards per attempt. They're 31st in pressure rate. They're 31st in pass success rate. They're 30th in EPA per pass, and they're 30th in sack rate. On the field over the last 3 years, they're 8th in pass success rate. They're 8th in sack rate. They're number 10 in EPA per pass. They're 13th in yards per attempt, and they're 15th in pressure rate. So it's so crazy.
Yeah, he's that high.
A dude being on the field could turn this defense into like an average unit, even above average unit. And when he's off the field, and we've been saying this for years anyway, we're legitimately holding our breath on what could go wrong.
Yeah, no, there's no question. I've got to douse this a little bit with like a negative tinge to it, only if these are real questions the Giants are going to ask Justin. I guess before I state this, before everybody jumps all over and goes, you hate Dexter Lawrence. If given my choice, I would rather Dexter Lawrence, while Jackson Dart gets played on a rookie contract, get paid, and the Giants defense continues to operate. So I'm coming at it from that standpoint. I will get to this in a little bit. I could be talked into a trade being beneficial for the Giants, but here's where I will play devil's advocate to that, Justin. Number one, the defense has sucked otherwise. And while those numbers are obviously an indication of how impactful and how great Dexter Lawrence is, the Giants should be striving for a defense that is not that reliant and impact or needs the Dexter Lawrence impact to be like that. Now,
but that's not Dex's fault.
It's not Dex's fault, and he should ask to get paid. But I guess my point is, like, when reading those numbers, I'm also going, okay, we've now brought in Denard Wilson. Okay, you added Abdul Carter last year. You've signed now Tremaine Edmonds. You haven't addressed enough at D-tackle, and I totally get that. This should be a defense where over the next 2 off seasons, we're building where we shouldn't need Dexter Lawrence to have those numbers. That's number one. Number two, like it or not, what Dexter Lawrence had happen this year off the injury, you want to say he was out of shape, you want to say he was unhappy about his contract, all of that. There does need to have a real conversation of, while he was still really good and effective, even if the sack numbers are there, is this a player that has begun his downward descension while playing at that size as a player? You're going to say you don't believe that? I think there's an element that we've at least begun that. And if we've begun that, how much is too much on a per-year basis to be paying Dexter Lawrence for the next 4 years?
I mean, think of true pass sets, right? Passing plays with 4+ pass rushes, or straight drop back by the quarterback and 7+ yards to gain. So Dexter Lawrence's pass rush win rate, even in true pass sets last year, was 6th best among interior defensive linemen. Overall, in all pass plays, it was 5th. So even though Dex definitely didn't get the same pressure rate, definitely didn't get the same hits, and definitely didn't get the same sacks, he's still winning, and the win rate is still there. We talked about the production when he's off the field and when he's on the field. And Shaun, I almost feel there's part of me that doesn't like that the lack of production was all kind of mental and was all kind of monetary driven, because now I'm questioning Dexter Lawrence's effort. But right, man, if you can get him back in a good headspace, back in the right mindset, and I can kind of throw out the whole injury impact and I can throw out the whole conditioning impact, and if they actually play him during a training camp and not treat him like, oh, you only could practice once or twice a week. So if we can throw that whole 2 points out the window, then I feel really damn good about Dexter Lawrence's 2026. Don't you? And I still feel like I am not looking at 2025 being like, this is the beginning of the fall for Dexter Lawrence, because I look at 2025 being like, you weren't mentally bought in, not anything physical. Okay.
I mean, but why? He wasn't mentally because of the contract, or he wasn't mentally because the elbow bothered him, because that's a part of it. And also, this blame on the Giants that they didn't push him hard enough, was that more just because Dex wasn't getting guaranteed money? That was like the kind of like their Brian Dable deal with him. Hey, we'll lay off you a little bit. I know you're not getting the money you want. This is all Joe Shane's fault. Either way, I don't like that kind of attitude even seeping in. It goes back to what you've preached, the disease of losing. And does Dexter Lawrence have that disease? Right. And now that is affecting him. And mental, physical, whatever it is, a dissension can be a dissension that starts anywhere, Justin. I get it. And at some point, he is going to be overweight and old. And when does that happen for a body like that?
I don't think we're close to that, though, at 28 years old. I don't think we're close to that.
I hope not. And I get that I'm sounding negative. I just don't think you could dismiss it. That's all I'm bringing to the table, is just the other side of it.
Yeah. I think they're going to pay him more. I hope that they don't just, because there's a way to do it where I think there's smart ways to do this, right? And
well, they could pay him more and take down his cap hit for this year, which will free up money too.
All right, so what I hope that they inevitably do, Shaun, is I want a flat-out extension.
Okay.
I don't want anything to be reworked the next 2 years. I would rather just extend Dexter Lawrence, because right now he's under contract 2026 and then 2027, and then that's it.
Yeah, but remember, there's no guarantees the next 2 years. So I think you almost have to rework the next 2 years.
Yeah, I would. So that's what I'm hoping for. What's the percentage chance that you put that he actually is traded and that he's not a Giant next year?
I mean, here's the thing. I'm going to say a high number. Maybe it's not high to you. I'm going to say like 35%.
I'm going, I would say 15. I'm not even going to say 20. I think it's 15%.
Look, it's hard for me to completely dismiss it from this standpoint. The Giants were not blindsided on Monday when Dexter Lawrence requested a trade. It is not as if suddenly they've sat there and went, oh my God, Dex is unhappy. The team knew before John Harbaugh came in, and after John Harbaugh's come in, you assume he spoke to him. I don't think this caught them by surprise. So if it didn't catch them by surprise, they could either say, well, this is coming and we're kind of all playing this game of what he wants and we're a little far apart. Or, I mean, I have to put it at 35. Maybe there's a chance that John Harbaugh and him, you know what, they spoke and they said, we'll shop you around. If we get what we want, we get what we want. And I also think that in today's day and age, you have to see what Quinnen Williams got, Sauce Gardner got. I know it's very New York centric. I mean, are the Giants really going to say no if they got some kind of crazy offer of 2 first-round picks? Would they really say no to that? So that I also have to include the market for Dexter Lawrence if he got that kind of deal. So that's where I get the 35%.
Okay. All right. Do you have anything else on that? I hope he isn't traded. Doesn't surprise me. I tweeted on January 5th that I thought that he was going to get traded. I'm like, I said on January 5th, my not so hot take, maybe hot take of the offseason is that Dexter Lawrence is going to request a trade in March. Stupid, dumb idiot. He requested a trade on April 6th, not April in March. 6th. So,
yep. Well, Justin, I just one more thing, because you asked me, now you're saying 15%. What would be a justifiable price for you to be like, okay, I get why the Giants did this?
I want 2 firsts.
Okay. So we're along the same lines.
Yeah. I want a package that's gonna blow me away. Because again, I view this guy as a generational elite NFL player. So that is, I don't care what he did in 2025. And now, again, this kind of answers me. The fact that the win rate is still so high, and you watch him when he's good, and he's still really good, and if he was not a respected, viewed as an elite NFL player, NFL teams would not still be doubling him 50 to 60% of the time. And they did every single week through the 2025 season. It's not physical to me in my head. It was straight up mental, the 2025 season. So this dude is still an elite player. And if you ask around the NFL, I guarantee you people will say, and you look at like the Quinnen Williams trade package, they're going to tell you that Dexter Lawrence is a better player than Quinnen Williams. So therefore he should get more. And he should get what an elite player gets, which would be 2 first-round picks. And
I actually have one more thought that I forgot. I didn't tweet this anywhere, so I'll get it out here too. And this is this. What kind of message does it send for John Harbaugh to the room that Dexter Lawrence, who's his like respected captain or whatever, gets frustrated, wants new guaranteed money, and your first line of business is, well, you don't want to be here, we trade you. When on the flip side, albeit more no guaranteed money, the guy who half that locker room saw did not work hard gets brought back in Evan Neal. Just feels like when we talk about the Evan Neal thing being like a no biggie, it kind of ties back into Dexter Lawrence, where I could see that just we're getting the Harbaugh situation off to a bad foot in terms of what you're showing the room to me. I think that's on the table.
Yeah, and also this has been a team, and this has been a franchise. I don't know how much this plays into effect when it comes to like the guys that have been on the team. Like, Burns has been on the team for a couple years. I mean, you're running out of the list is running low when you're talking about the longest tenure Giants. I mean, even going back to 2022 and the 2022 offseason in that draft class. Micah
McFadden
is like the only one that really came back, right? Just Josh Azudu, wrong. Evan Neal, wrong.
Well,
Kayvon Thibodeau is obviously still under his 5th year deal. But, regardless, my point is that there's been plenty of guys that they've seen leave and not be brought back. Dexter Lawrence feels some kind of way about Leonard Williams being traded. That was one of his best friends, if not his best friend, that just kind of got traded. Saquon Barkley, I'm sure they were close, and they played for a couple years, and a lot of people feel a certain type of way about him not being brought back. Xavier McKinney was not brought back. Julian Love was not brought back. So I think finding a way to meet Dexter Lawrence where he's at and getting him mentally back into this football team, I think that could be a way that John Harbaugh can get a good start, like with his team and then the morale around the team with taking care of one of your superstar players. And then also even GM Joe Schoen, too, who obviously does not have the best reputation for dealing with players and contract negotiations and things like that. So get this handled, get this situated, get Dexter Lawrence bought back in, because I want him to be bought back in because that's the best version of himself, because if he's not bought in, then I don't know if I would want him around anyway.
No, that's true. You want everybody to play son. Yeah. Oh, I got a third one. I'm sorry. I have one more note. Maybe this also answers another question as to why Christian Wilkins is not a New York Giant, because everybody just assumed because he's best friends with Dexter Lawrence from Clemson that he would sign with the Giants this offseason. You think maybe that was also a part of this? That, it wasn't a lock that Lawrence was going to be back?
No, dude, there's something up with Christian Wilkins that isn't talked about.
Oh, of course. I'm totally with you, but that was another Giant fan narrative was this is his chance to come back into the NFL is because of Dexter Lawrence. Well, Dexter Lawrence just requested a trade, so I don't think Christian Wilkins was top of mind between Dex and the Giants.
I can't describe how weird that story and that situation is, because there are people that talk about weird things that he did or that happened around him.
Yeah.
They like talk about it without mentioning any details about it. So I'm out on that. I know people talk about it a ton. I'm out on the Christian Wilkins experience.
Good. I'm sorry I mentioned him.
All right, so moving on from Dex, the Giants have signed interior offensive lineman guard/center Lucas Patrick. He was with the Cincinnati Bengals in 2025, only played 23 snaps, but he was with the Saints in 2024, started a good amount at left guard, started in 10 games, and appeared in 563 snaps. He played in 79% of the snaps in which he was eligible to play in the games that he was active. 2023, he was with the Bears. 2022, he was with the Bears too. There was one season, 958 snaps that he played in 2023 as well. And then Green Bay Packers, 2021, at center, 82%, over 900 snaps. 2020 at right guard, over 900 snaps, 90% of the snaps. So this guy's bounced around a little bit. He has started in some of the places where he's gone, and he really has alternated between guard and center. What are your initial reactions to this, Shaun?
Okay, so the bad initial reaction is just simply, I hope the Giants haven't had an impasse with Greg Van Roten or even not picked up the phone for Kevin Zeitler to the point that this is going to be their answer pre-draft at the guard position. But the positive is there is positives here. They lost Austin Schlottman. There is a lot of center experience here, just going through everything here that Lucas Patrick has done. And I think that is where his value will come in. And while I think that if Greg Van Roten was here in a perfect world, could he kick inside the center and do that? Sure, but you don't have that right now. I also like the idea that he is a self-made player, undrafted, worked his ass off. And while he bounced around to these teams the last couple of years, he keeps earning spots on rosters and finding, avenues to start on the offensive line in the NFL and do a reputable job, as you tweeted out, with the pass blocking efficiency numbers as well.
Yep.
So I like this from the horrible point of view in terms of like guys that love football, guys are going to work their ass off. Lucas Patrick has had to not stop working his ass off his entire career to even make the NFL, to continue to make rosters, and then from roster making to start games, and then to start games to the point he wasn't a complete sieve, at least in terms of pass blocking. And I think when you climb those steps one by one, this is the exact kind of like perfect backup offensive lineman you want on your team that can pinch start if you need him because of the experience. I like it.
Yeah, I'm with you where I hope this is an Austin Schlottman replacement and not a Greg Van Roten replacement. And I really hope. I really hope you don't go out and say we want to have the best offensive line of the league, and then Lucas Patrick, who played 23 snaps last year, is going to be your answer at guard, right? But I will say,
important, right? Because John Michael Schmitz missed snaps, missed games last year. That was new to John Michael Schmitz, but that happened.
Yeah. So I will say, I don't want to poo-poo on this, because I think for a backup guard center, I think Lucas Patrick is I think this is a very, very good signing if that's the intention. Lucas Patrick has pass blocking efficiency numbers by year. In 2024, he was tied for 6th among guards. Played in 10 games, 11 games, not nearing 1,000 snaps like Greg Van Roten, like you typically want your starting guard to be. But he was tied for 6th among guards. 2023, when he was a center, he was tied for 18th among centers. 2022, he didn't really play. 2021, he was tied for 13th among centers. And then 2020, he's going back to guard. He was tied for 10th. So his pass blocking efficiency numbers are actually better at guard. That is where the Giants do need a little bit of help if that's where they really want to go. But nevertheless, again, they do need a backup center. I hope that's where Lucas Patrick kind of slots in and drives in. Overall, as a pass blocker, let's just forget stats. I do think Greg Van Roten moves a little bit better than him, especially Lucas Patrick was really, it's really tough in 2024. I was watching him versus the Panthers in week 1, and that's where Clint Kubiak is running his outside zone stuff. So, man, we're making a guy in his mid-30s run outside zone and stretch plays and things like that. So he was moving. He's moving. You got to move in those outside zone schemes. I don't think that's really what the Giants are going to do like that, like the Shanahans of the world and like the Kubiaks and like the Kevin Stefanskis of the world. But still, didn't mention this. He's going to be 33 in July 30th. So he's another unk, joining this free agency of unks that we want the Giants to go out and get.
Exactly.
I like this. I like this signing, and I hope it's not. I hope he is not going to be the answer at guard.
Okay, so the other follow-up to this is, and just kind of bear with me. We've arrived at the point 2 weeks before the draft, and I'm going to tie this back into Lucas Patrick. Do you think we're not going to find out about Greg Van Roten? I'm not even going to mention Zeitler at this point. Like, just Greg Van Roten until after the draft? Do you think we've arrived close enough to the draft that this is like now done until after the draft?
I don't know, man. I think he's been signed late. But I guess you would even say
last year was pre-draft for sure. Yeah,
it was pre-draft. It was at late March, right?
Yeah.
And then
so the reason I say that,
of course, the year that he was brought on board in 2024, it was during training camp.
Right.
So.
Right. And so the only reason I say that is I wonder if we've gotten to the point or reached the point of a Lucas Patrick signing signaling they have their eyes on insert guard here at the top of round 2, or they think they're going to, swing some kind of trade, and they like whatever. A couple guards could be available mid to late second round, and then do something else in round 3, as we talked about last week on a mock draft. And they look at Lucas Patrick's starting experience and go, I'm okay pairing him with a second round guard. Do you think that's on the table at all?
Say that one more time.
You're okay pairing Lucas Patrick and his starting experience to an extent with taking a guard that may not be ready to start day 1, but they think will be a starter next year in round 2 of the draft. Let's just play that scenario.
I think it depends on the guard, because let's take, for example,
but my point is, we're 2 weeks from the draft. They clearly have their eyes on what they think is going to happen in this draft.
Yeah, but take for example, in Fanatics Fivo, there may or may not be a guard in Emmanuel Pregnon, who is old as hell. So he's already 24 years old.
Exactly.
This is what's so tricky about interior offensive linemen. I view it in a very similar light to cornerback, Shaun, where it's hard. It's a hard position to transition to for whatever reason. You see interior guys struggle all the time right away. The most polished, clean-cut prospects. I will always look at the examples and the stories of Zion Johnson and Kenyon Green. Like 2 of these kick-ass, perfect interior offensive line prospects. And, man, they have flopped. And finally, Zion Johnson showed something in 2025, which led him to get a pretty nice contract. That's just because of how young and athletic he is, and that a team could feel like they could really turn him around. Not really because of what he's fully done. Same thing with cornerback. Just such a tough position to kind of transition to, where sometimes it does take 2, 3, 4 years for these guys to fully kick in. Yet it's a really important position to kind of figure out, because anybody on that offensive line, if they are a wart, they will stick out and you will go in.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
Giants
offseason program's also kind of beginning.
Yes.
That's what I was looking up when you were talking about the scenario the first time. I was trying to look up their offseason schedule.
Which is also why Dexter Lawrence's news came out now, because he's not going to report.
100%. 100%. But I thought it was interesting with Greg Van Roten. New offense, at least for the standpoint of that it's going to be a new offense and that there's new coaching and things like that. If Brian Dable was here, who gives a hell? Who gives a shit? Greg Van Roten doesn't need to be here for that. But
kind of think Greg Van Roten's floated around enough organizations that he'll be okay.
Yeah, I think obviously he'll be fine. But April 7th, Giants are going to be back on the field. I'm excited to watch. I'm excited just to see pictures of John Harbaugh out on the field with those guys. It still feels surreal that it actually did happen.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. We'll just have a roster finalized before I get totally excited. Yeah.
All right, Shaun. Fanatics Fivo. What we initially were going to do during today's show. So this segment is called the Fanatics Fivo, and it's presented by the Fanatics Sportsbook. Shaun, tell us what we are doing today.
Okay, so the Giants, last week, Justin and I did a whole, hey, if Jeremiah loves the pick, what happens, yada, yada, yada. So we gave our full mock drafts, including what the Giants we think could work out through a mock in round 2. So what we're doing today is specifically looking at round 2 and 37th pick, which, Justin, before we kind of give a list, and the list is essentially going to be the 5 guys I want to target at pick 37, and we're going to talk about them. But this is going to sound hot takey, maybe I'm putting too much radio-y stuff into this podcast. While number 5 is immensely huge for the New York Giants for a number of reasons, right? You don't want to be picking top 5. I think whenever a team is picking the top of the draft, you realize or forget, we all focus on round 1. Round 2 is almost equally as important, because you need to come out of there, even if it's not a superstar player, clearly, because they're in round 2 for a reason. The Giants can't miss on getting a starter here with this 37th pick, and a starter that is here, hopefully, playing high-quality football beyond this first contract.
And I think, particularly this year, because the top end of the draft isn't as sexy as it has been in previous years. There is no Malik Neighbors wide receiver prospect. There just isn't. I think Carnell Tate's really good. There's no Malik Neighbors type of prospect here, right? There's no Aiden Hutchinson, Abdul Carter type of sexy edge rusher, right? Interior D lineman number 1, I feel like is somewhat of a murky conversation too. And what really sucks is that there's one consensus quarterback that's going to go number 1. There isn't another one that more teams are going to take in front of the Giants, so then the better players could fall to them, right? This draft, the top end of the draft is so bad that now it's somewhat of a clear, Jeremiah Love genuinely is one of the best players in this draft. And that sucks because you don't really want to take a running back at the top. But what does make me excited is the depth in this draft does seem to very much be there. And I am very excited by a lot of the names that are floating around the consensus board between 25, 26, 27, if some of those guys can fall. And then even going back past 37, the 40s, those players do very much excite me. I am going to be very excited about pick 37 and or even if they trade back and the depth and the quality of players that are there in round 2, I am very excited about.
Yeah, you got a lot of good football players. So we're going to go through a couple of them. And again, I know last week in my mock, I gave a trade at 37. We can't operate as if it's that way. So we're targeting players that should be right around the 37th pick available. And look, if we miss and a couple of these guys are gone before 37, well, then the draft's gotten kooky. So hopefully that works. So you ready to talk about 5 guys here, Justin?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Number 5 on the guys I'm targeting at 37. We just mentioned him a little while ago as I re-pull back up my list. Oregon guard Emmanuel Pregnon. Now, he's older, as Justin alluded to, 24 years old. What does worry me slightly, he does project, ironically enough, you would think this is interchangeable, but just simply not. He projects more of as a left guard. Does that mean they'd kick Runyon over to right guard so that he's comfortable? Obviously, he's pretty good with his hand placement, and his strength is the run game, Justin, even more so than pass protection. He can get a little off balance in terms of pass protection, but he could step in at 24 years old, probably overpower you a little bit, and at least be a grinder in the run game while he works on his pass protection.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my notes are centered around the run game, right? And also, he has the measurables that you're looking for an interior offensive lineman as well, where so many times we talk about interior guys, but their arms are short, And, of course, there's exceptions to guys that have short arms. But I just like that we don't have to talk about that when it comes to Pregnon, right? It's 68th percentile arm length and 86th percentile wingspan. He moves mountains, and he knows how to finish dudes. He brings that dirtbag mentality here. Rarely ever gets jolted at the point of attack, and he's really going to hold his ground. Quick and active feet. I think he has very good lateral movement, moving side to side and mirroring. Active hands that are constantly looking to redirect if his hands get displaced. I think he's pretty good at picking up stunts and recognizing stunts too. Teach tape on how to drive blocks. I mean, between his hand placement, hips are sinking right in, his feet are chopping. I think he's an athletic and an effective puller. He moves up to the secondary level well and with pretty good timing. The only problem that I have, he's older. Older. And I think what's important to note with his age, Shaun, okay, well, the old prospects come out all the time.
Yeah.
He's 24 years old right now.
Yeah.
But in 2025, his age 23/24-year-old season was his truly first good year. And I was doing some reading on what does this 2024, what did the years look like prior? Apparently his 2024 tape was closer to a day 3 UDFA player. So I'm worried, is this a player that is older, bigger, stronger than everybody else because he's 24 years old and the guys that he's playing are 22, 21? That's the worry.
It's a worry, and it's on the table. I've matured with this take because I used to totally think that way about the older prospects. And I'm pretty much okay with anybody outside of quarterback at this point being older. It's part of the reason I didn't like Tyler Shuck last year. Or he's just grown into his body. He's understood how to, body control, what he needs to do. And that strength now allows him and that age to step in on day one. And at the very least, if that just makes his floor higher in the NFL, and it doesn't mean he's not an ascending 22-year-old player, I think that's still okay in round 2. I think that's still okay. And look, we've gone the other way. I know it's a completely apples to orange position where you take the youngest guy in the draft in a Cordell Flott, and then by the time he matures and figures out his body and strength into the NFL, he's in his contract year, having a career year, and then you can't afford him. So I'm okay with the older player, even if his tape suggested while he was younger, he could have been a UDFA. I think you're allowed to still be a quality NFL player and not be rung down because you figured it out as you got older.
Yeah. Believe it or not, he hasn't allowed, per PFF, hasn't allowed a single sack over the last 3 years. And he's played 731 snaps at USC in 2023, 808 snaps at USC in 2024, and then he transferred to Oregon, and that's when he really blossomed. So
now, also, not having the sacks at Oregon, for instance, Dante Moore this year, that's a guy that's not going to take a lot of sacks. He's running around back there. Don't just pay attention to complete sack numbers with the mobile quarterbacks in the Pac-12. Or whatever it's called now. Now, the Big Ten. Yeah. I forgot.
So I like Pregnon. I like him.
Yeah, I like a Pregnon. Okay, we're ready for number 4?
Ready for number 4.
All right, number 4. KAYDEN McDonald, defensive tackle, Ohio State. So obviously D-tackle is how we started this show, talking about Dexter Lawrence. And I think, Justin, that we went through a long stretch as Giant fans where every couple of years it would be D-tackle, round 2, wash, rinse, repeat, ready for, from Barry Cofield to Jonathan Hankins. And it kind of feels like this draft could be lining up that way. If KAYDEN McDonald is there at 37, coming from a big school in Ohio State, his brother played, college football, also Troy, UConn. So he's got a family of football players here. His size, if I go back, 6'2", 32-inch arms, 326 pounds, and is a junior from Georgia. Your thoughts on KAYDEN McDonald?
Consensus ranking of 31, 21 years old. 9 tackles for loss this year as a guy that plays like closer to nose tackle, 1 tech, 3 tech, 3 sacks. Shaun, I think he's one of the safest picks in this draft. And I mean that as a compliment because I watched Alfred Collins last year and I'm just like, oh my God, this guy is just so disruptive. He's a run stopper. That's what he does. He's really good at it. He's built like a brick shit house, and he is strong. So strong. I do not think that he will fall to round 2, but I'm hoping that he does. Like if I had to make a list right now, 5 through 1, KAYDEN McDonald would certainly be a lot closer to number 1 for me. And also, we just talked about age. I think he's 21 years old, and he's played for like the last 2 years. Won a national championship in 2024, was an All-American in 2025. He's so strong. He knows how to use his hands. He shocks his opponents on impact. Strong hands. He's tossing his guys around like ragdolls there. Reads his opponent and clearly diagnoses block and scheme and play design and things like that. Great awareness, good motor. I really, really like KAYDEN McDonald, and I view him as a safe player because I think even from day one, as we're talking about interior D-line, interior O-line, like some of these positions, they may take time. Guys take a little bit of time to transition. I do think KAYDEN McDonald can come in right away and help spark this run defense in a very, very positive way, with still looking at him as a player who's young and ascending and could get even better.
Yes. I think that's a perfect way to put it. Where we knew last year, despite being older, that Darius Alexander was going to be a little bit of a project in terms of figuring out the run game, as he had some strength as a pass rusher, so to speak, from the interior. There's a different kind of player with KAYDEN McDonald. I like Lance Zierlein. I think he does a good job on NFL.com, and like he does like a lot of the strengths, weaknesses of every single player in the NFL draft. So I'm just going to read you 3 of the lines on strengths because it kind of speaks to what you were talking about and absolutely plays this to give like the audience an idea. You talked about him being a shit brick house and talking about Alfred Collins as well. This line, built with well-proportioned thickness, meaning like there's not a target on the body that you feel like is going to be a weakness. He's just a mammoth man. Jolts blockers with knockback power. And the last one, which I love for a defense that has been just crushed on the run, plays around blocks with his eyes to locate and track ball carriers. His eyes are always following the ball as he's blowing up blocks. I think that's very important for the Giants as they try to figure out this D-tackle position.
Yeah. Now, he's 20th percentile in arm length, 88th percentile in weight. So the size is there. Only 11 career pressures, so he's not going to provide that much as a pass rusher. And he plays a little too upright. But the nice thing about if he plays a little too upright, he's already 6'2", and that's not all that big to begin with. So he's going to naturally be a little bit lower than everyone else too. But even that 20th percentile in arm length and his short arms, it doesn't fully bug me because of how strong he is, both from an upper body standpoint and a lower body. And he also knows how to use his hands in a multitude of ways, whether it be with strength and whether he's throwing dudes, whether he's setting that up into a quick hand move, a swim, a rip, something like that to shed blocks and get by guys. That's why that doesn't really overtly concern me. I don't think you're going to draft KAYDEN McDonald and get like, oh my God, the next big interior defensive lineman that's really going to, change the league and change the game. But is he going to be solid for you? Is he going to be a solid run defender? Is he a guy that you could put out there on first and second down and you feel really damn good about it? And you feel great about your interior? Yes, 100%. And I think that could even happen from day one. You immediately feel better about this Giants run defense with the mindset that this is going to be a guy that may take him a couple years to get better because that's just the nature of this position. I love KAYDEN McDonald, so I'm right there with you.
Okay, so my next 3 guys as we finish 3, 2, 1, I'm just going to tell you right now, I could make the case that 2 of them are maybe my favorite players in the entire draft. And it excites me that they could be available at 37. And the other is more need-based that I'm beginning to fall in love with. So one of the guys that I think is one of the best players in the entire draft that I just think you're going to close your eyes, you're going to look back in 10 years and go, man, what a great career. How the hell did this guy get overlooked and become a second-round pick? And that is, for me, linebacker Jacob Rodriguez, who I think is the ultimate Sonny. You didn't get Sonny Styles insurance in this draft. I think if the Giants take Sonny Styles, obviously I don't think that this will be the play. But I think Jacob Rodriguez, you want to talk about high floors, and guys, I don't think we'll miss. He gets to Texas Tech. He's basically just like this stud athlete, but he's like a work ethic guy. His dad is like this Army Ranger of some sort. I think his wife is like a helicopter, like Navy pilot or something. Awesome. You could quote me on this. Like, he's just got like a family of complete, like, real brave people. And he's a bit of a nutcase that is just fearless when he flies to the football and tackles. I think fearless would be the word I'd use. And he's got a lot of leadership. Independence Bowl MVP in 2022. I mean, this is a guy that just every year there has been production. And when you go flip on the tape of what Texas, we talked about Texas Tech last week, right? And the defense that they presented throughout this entirety of this NFL season. There's Jacob Rodriguez again. Who were we talking about last week? Lee Hunter? Like, he's another guy that's just all over the map. And I can't speak enough. Jacob Rodriguez is going to be an awesome linebacker in this league. And he's a guy that probably gets downgraded a little bit because of the positional value. But this is a guy I think you could walk away in years whenever we submit this being a weak draft and say this is one of the 20 best players to come out of this draft.
Yeah,
I think he's that good.
Would love Rodriguez to be there. Dude, his college football reference page is quite the sight to see. And I don't know if I've ever seen stuff like this from a guy that played 13 games and 14 games, 127 combined tackles in 2024, 128 combined in 2025, 10.5 tackles for loss in 2024, 11 tackles for loss in 2025, 5 sacks in 2024, 1 in 2025, 1 interception in 24, 4 interceptions in 2025, 4 passes defense, 6 passes defense the last 2 years, 3 forced fumbles in 2024, and 7 forced fumbles in 2025. 7.
You think the Giants could use that?
7.
Incredible.
And man, did he go down in Mobile? You know, he was down at the Senior Bowl, of course. Of course he was, because everybody was down at the Senior Bowl. And he was one of the best players down there. I think it's really difficult for interior linebackers to really stand out down there. You're not tackling. You're not really going full speed. I mean, they're going. They got pads on. They're hitting. Don't get me wrong. But you're not bringing anybody down to the ground. But he stood out in coverage. I mean, he was baiting quarterbacks to make throws. He was ending team periods with interceptions. He was forcing fumbles down there. I mean, what do they call I'm gonna age myself so bad here. What do they call the Charles Tillman for the Bears?
Oh, the peanut punch?
He has executed that, man. That peanut punch, he has got that down to a T. And the crazy thing is, Shaun, he went to the combine and he did everything but bench, and he was great. He killed it. Killed the 10-yard split, like 86th percentile, 40-yard dash, 92nd percentile. Vertical, 95th percentile. Broad jump, 82nd percentile. Shuttle and 3-cone, both over higher than the 90th percentile. So how many times do we have to talk about off-ball linebackers entering into the NFL draft that have really good film, like Jacob Rodriguez have, that are playmakers like Jacob Rodriguez is, but then you have to defend that they're not really good athletes. And you're going to be like, oh, man, but they're processing and how you play fast is with your brain. You hear me talk about that with safeties and interior linebackers. We don't need to do that defending here with Jacob Rodriguez because he also is a really good athlete. So I am all for it, man. I don't care that he's a little undersized, whatever. Doesn't matter. He's a playmaker. He's one of the best playmakers in this draft, period, to begin with.
You know, he'll fly all over the place for the Giant defense. And again, if Sonny Styles is not the pick at 5, and he's sitting there and the Giants don't trade out, it's going to be hard not to be screaming, take Jacob Rodriguez on that Friday night. Yeah. All right, Justin, number 2. And this is that player that I feel like I'm falling in love with, but I need to question whether I'm falling in love with the idea of him himself or the idea of the value is going to meet the need himself. And that's where I want to talk this through. And that's Colton Hood, the 6-foot corner out of Tennessee, 4.44, 40-yard dash. He is 196 pounds. You want to label that lighter, whatever. But he is a physical press corner as well, which the more I watch him play that way, the more it excites me, the more I'd be interested to see how Denard Wilson would use him, and the more it would make me just feel better about this cornerback room if we're sitting there at 37 and Colton Hood's there and they take him. But I do have that fear, right, as we would with any corner taken in the first couple rounds of the NFL draft. How will it translate? Will he get run over by a shifty wide receiver a little bit where he kind of has to make up ground? But Colton Hood is a guy maybe I'm talking myself into more than just being in love the way I was with Jacob Rodriguez, but an interesting prospect nonetheless, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, cornerbacks, I feel like it's a little bit more accepted to take chances on traits, and 74th percentile arm length, little over 32 inches. He is also super young. He's went to 3 different schools over the last
Auburn,
3 years.
Colorado, yeah.
I believe he's only 20 years old, unless he's recently maybe even turned 21, which has happened. Very, very physical, so I agree with you there. He uses that size and his length to advantage in all phases at the line and then even throughout the route, and that was apparent too. He was down at the Senior Bowl, listed as a sophomore on College Football Reference, and he was down at the Senior Bowl. I've never seen that before. Very, very handsy. Like, to a point where it wasn't just, one-on-ones. It was apparent. It was apparent how handsy and how physical. So that's going to have to be coached out of him, certainly a little bit. Bit slow to react at the release has hit his feet and has his kind of feet hidden in cement at times, needs to rely on recovery length to help him out. But I also don't
by the way,
that.
he just turned 21.
Okay. Still like super young.
Yeah.
And I think I like that for corners, right? Mirroring is a bit of an issue at times. Not so great ball production. 8 passes defensed in 2025, 6 in 2024, 3 interceptions over the last 2 years combined. 2 of them were tipped. I do want to add that. So he's a physical player whose physicality and length makes up for some of his lack of technicality.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Either way, just the other worry I guess I would have about Colton Hood is you read enough people talk about him. The projection is still a high-level cornerback 2. That's not a bad pick in round 2, but wouldn't answer the Giants' long-term question about who the cornerback 1 is on this team.
Oh, by the way, I was wrong.
Okay.
His arms are 31 and a third.
Okay.
So I was lied to I did this right at pre-Senior Bowl, and now he went to the Combine, and of course his arms are less than what was initially reported. But still
over 30 inches like you like.
Good arm length and good straight line speed as well. So the physical traits are there for Colton Hood. You just gotta. I think there's some technical things to clean up, and gotta stop being so grabby.
Okay, are we ready for number 1?
Number 1.
Number 1 is a personal bias-y, if you will.
Yep.
I sat there and I watched every single Texas A&M game this season. Every single one. They, I always seem to have money involved in some kind of game, like a degenerate. And every single game, KC CONCEPCION, who's my number 1 player at target at 37, kept popping on tape. And I finally got to the point in like mid-October, Justin, where I sat myself on the couch and kept saying, man, if Wan'Dale Robinson leaves in the offseason, sign me up for KC CONCEPCION, because I think he'll be an absolute playmaker. I think he's got a lot of Deebo Samuel traits, just less fat, I think, which could play as well. That was a cheap shot. But I think that this is the kind of weapon that a little Zay Flowers, too, as far as playing like the outside-inside flexibility, along with his height. Sometimes he gets some alligator arms in traffic, although that seems to be a little overblown, just watching the actual games. Justin, again, when you think of Malik Neighbors as the outside wide receiver, signing Isaiah Likely, and we talk about the future of the wide receiver position with the Giants, man, if they drafted KC CONCEPCION, I think you're getting a steal. I think, just like I talked about Rodriguez, I think you're going to look back in a couple of years and go, wow, this was a lot of wide receivers, and the oversaturation of the wide receiver market is what cost this guy and how he fell out of the first round, because for most of the season, people thought he was a back end of the first round guy. Now it seems like he's going to be round 2. I think he's a stud, man. I think he's a stud, and that just completely, again, would elevate the weaponry for Jackson Dart.
You putting him in the slot or the outside?
Well, I think that's the beauty of him, right? And I think that's the beauty of the idea of what the Giants are doing, where, Justin, you talked about, how many different ways can you formulate who's on the field at what time. I want guys with versatility. So I like this. So I have no problem if he materializes and becomes like this shifty inside receiver, which he clearly can.
Yeah.
I'm totally good with taking that in round 2. If he really does continue to develop his game on the outside and can kind of have that flexibility, I think that's a win too. So I actually think his diversity is also another reason why I'm looking to throw a dart, because he could fail at one and be better at the other, and the pick still not itself be a failure because he's really good at what he's good at. You know what I mean?
It's hard to cover. He's hard to tackle. Change of direction is really good. I don't think
the change of direction's insane. Every time he caught a pass, you were like, oh my God, there he goes.
I don't think he's bogged down by press. Now, he's obviously not the most powerful player, but his ability to beat press with his lateral movement and quick hands at the line really stands out. 11th in yak per reception, but also 12th with a 12 ADOT, a 12 average yards depth to target. That's pretty damn good. Usually you say like, oh, the guys that do well yak-wise, well, they're targeted in the short part of the field. That's not necessarily the case with him. Double moves, he's really, really good at. Here's the one concern that I am going to bring up. And this is from my guy. I don't watch film football analytics. Ironically enough, he puts out a lot of good analytical draft guides and draft profiles, and he does watch film. I think he just puts that like a little bit of tongue in cheek. So Concepcion averages at 2.64 career yards per route run versus man coverage. That's really good, but only 1.82 against zone. That's not good. Why is this concerning? Teams play zone about 75% of the time in the NFL. Teams play a lot of zone coverage in the NFL. If selected in the first or second round of the 2026 NFL Draft, Concepcion would join a group of receivers since 2019 with a greater than 2 yards per route run versus man, but less than 2 yards per route run versus zone. That includes Terrace Marshall Jr. and Keel Harry, Denzel Mims, and KJ Hamler.
Yeah,
That's
not a great list.
Exactly the best list. So, and there's a couple guys too. I believe Denzel Boston's another one of those receivers too that has really good yards per route run numbers against man, but not very good yards per route run numbers against zone, which that is certainly a little bit concerning there. But still, like, top of the second round, I think I would prefer the people. So again, like Shaun, I would put KC a little bit closer to 5. I like him, and I think this just goes to show, I think, the quality of players that may be there and available for them, for the Giants at 37. I would put Jacob Rodriguez above him. I think I would definitely put KAYDEN McDonald above him. And then if there is any of the potential, which guys, what we were going to spend this episode on, like a guy like Peter Woods falling. Yeah. If Emmanuel McNeil-Warren falls out of the first round as well.
I know you want to talk about
certainly
him too,
guys like that too.
Yeah, look, I'm not pounding the table telling you this, and I totally admit it's a personal bias. I'm not somebody that just kind of parachutes in and just starts watching like tape and doing that. I'm a college football game watcher. And KC Concepcion was a guy that I have talked about with the Giants for months and years. So if it lines up at 37, you're just going to find me orgasmic at that point if the Giants took him. He's a jersey purchase for me right away.
Yep. Works his way back to the ball and attacks it in the air and has a good sense of helping QBs during a scramble drill as well. Isaiah Likely also does that very well. And we all know that Jackson Dart likes to improvise. Yeah. Another QB-friendly wide receiver KC can be.
And you know what else, real quickly? SEC obviously exploded this year, was awesome. But before that, he didn't just like arrive on the scene. He was great at NC State. He was like the freshman wide receiver of the year, all ACC, all of that. The last couple of years, he was great at NC State as well. So this wasn't just something where he popped out of nowhere. He's been building it now in multiple big conferences, which I think helps too.
All right. So we're going to be back on Friday with another mock draft. I believe we're going to either do Sonny Styles or Caleb Downs. The Caleb Downs / Sonny Styles Giants mock draft. I believe that's what we're going to do, Shaun. So then we'll see you then. Let's go Giants. We'll see you Friday.
It starts today. Let's go Giants!